Thank you. A very good evening there. Today our lecture is basically about ethanol metabolism. Later on, discuss energy expenditure, and then we get to disorders of carbohydrate metabolism, and then we call it a lecture for today. So to kickstart with ethanol, learning objectives for this lecture today is to explore and go in length to understand metabolism of ethanol in the body. And then first to understand what ethanol is an alcohol. That's what it is. We shall get to that later. And learn in details the energy expenditure. We'll also understand disorders of carbohydrate metabolism and their management. All those disorders, how can you manage them? And so to start with this, ethanol metabolism is a process by which ethanol or alcohol, or ethanol is alcohol, how it is broken down in the body. So this metabolism of alcohol occurs primarily in the liver through two different oxidative pathways. Whereas if someone takes alcohol, this alcohol with time have to be broken down. After their breakdown, I think you will get to know what happens. They will be released, and ethanol gives also energy. So it has to be metabolized in the body. So the exact process goes through two things. It is through two different oxidative pathways, and the activity of each pathway depends on the ethanol concentration and the frequency of ethanol consumption. Looking at low concentration, meaning if someone takes just a little of alcohol or ethanol, the oxidation of ethanol is a two-step. At low concentration, that oxidation occurs in just two steps. Is a two-step process that occurs in both the cytosol and the mitochondria. So that's one step occurs in the cytosol, then the next one takes place in the mitochondria. And the first step of the reaction is by alcohol dehydrogenase. Once you have this dehydrogenase, just have in mind that you're having NAD in this reaction. So alcohol dehydrogenase catalyze this first reaction in the cytosol, and it will produce acetaldehyde. So that's the molecule. Once this ethanol here is being broken down in presence of the enzyme alcohol dehydrogenase in the cytosol, you have that product acetaldehyde. So acetaldehyde here is then converted into acetate, and in the mitochondria, this is now the second step in this process. So after conversion to acetaldehyde in the cytosol, the process continues, and this acetaldehyde is then moved or sorted into the mitochondria, where it's converted by still acetaldehyde dehydrogenase enzyme and can be transported in the blood to be used as energy source for peripheral tissues, your nerves, your muscles, and everything that requires that kind of energy. So you'll be able to get energy also from alcohol. So yeah, the acetate can be converted to acetyl-CoA by acetyl-CoA synthetase, and this will be oxidized in the TCA cycle. TCA cycle, like we looked at it in one of our lectures, tricarboxylic acid cycle. And each step in the oxidation of ethanol produces NAD. We'll get to see maybe an illustration about that. Ethanol produces NAD, which increases the ratio of a reduced NAD to oxidized NAD, and the NAD H is the reduced NAD, and they are not with a positive sign. What you're seeing here, hopefully you see my cursor right here, hopefully you're seeing the cursor right there. Sorry about that, it was not on presentation mode. Hopefully you see this cursor I'm showing right here, and this is the oxidized NAD with a plus, and then the other, the H, is the reduced NAD. So the increase in this ratio can alter metabolism of other substrates and cause metabolic dysfunction. So the illustration of this process is right here, the first one right on my left side, or the left side of the screen, the conversion of ethanol to acetaldehyde. requires the reduction of NADH in the presence of alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme. So just like we said earlier, all these steps will produce, these steps produces what? Produces NAD, and it produces reduced NADs, and which these NADs, as we remember, our electron transport chain, are very important in synthesis of energy, or ATP. So acetaldehyde, after being formed, it is converted to what we call an acetate, and then now this acetate later on will be converted into acetyl-CoA by enzyme acetate CoA ligase, or you can, this is the synthetase enzyme here. So what happens here is that this acetyl-CoA here, we very well know it is one of the intermediate important in the Krebs cycle. This molecule here, acetyl-CoA, it was joins or fuses with oxaloacetate in the Krebs cycle to form citrate. So meaning all this will be channeled into our tricarboxylic acid cycle, like we mentioned earlier. And consequences, what are the consequences of ethanol metabolism to the liver? And this breakdown, like we said earlier, occurs in the liver, but then it has its own consequences, that at each step in ethanol oxidation, there is a production of reduced NAD, both in the mitochondrial or cytosolic compartment. Each one of them produces NADH. What we are seeing here, this is in the cytosol, and this right down here from acetaldehyde to acetate is in the mitochondria. So let's look at this. This can have major metabolic consequences depending on the underlying metabolic environment. So we look at the case of hypoglycemia, that a high reduced NAD produced by alcohol metabolism contributes to diversion of gluconeogenic substrates, the oxaloacetate and the pyruvate. So what we are seeing here is that there will be conversion of this. Pyruvate could go into gluconeogenesis and produce for us glucose into blood. And if you're in the case of hypoglycemia, there is no hope there. If you have taken your alcohol, meaning you're already going to form acetyl-CoA, which will now result into the continuation of the process of tricarboxylic cycle, what we call the Krebs cycle. Yeah, so that will affect these substrates that are very important in gluconeogenesis. So meaning if you have high of this NADH, reduced NAD, this cycle here is also important, that this process of energy generation continuous ATP synthesis. So it affects gluconeogenesis. You're hypoglycemic, you really need some energy, but the challenge is that all this thing has been channeled into synthesis of ATP rather than having some glucose in your body. Now, the higher NAD or NAD to NAD plus ratio here drives the reaction towards the malate and lactate respectively. So in such a case, if you have higher levels of oxaloacetate in your body, you get into the cycle of malate. And then pyruvate results into formation of lactate, which in turn can continue into gluconeogenesis and form a glucose. Now, ethanol metabolism here, this can lead to the presentation of fasting hypoglycemia. And another effect under another condition is fatty steatosis. Steatosis is a condition where you have fat in your stool or in your waste. I can simply say feces. So you have a high reduced NAD and oxidized NAD right here. This high ratio can also increase conversion of dihydroxyacetone phosphate to glycerol 3 phosphate. That we can remember the process. This is one of the intermediate in the hydroxyacetone phosphate. Is the is an intermediate in in glycolysis, and this contributes to increased synthesis of triacyl glycerols. These are fats. So once these fats are synthesized in your body, you end up producing a lot of them, and you just release them in your stool or feces. And additionally, there's an increase in the reactive oxygen species, which can impair protein synthesis and prevent the assembly and secretion of VLDLs. And VLDLs is the very low density lipoproteins. So this can ultimately contribute to fatty liver disease. So just in case you have a lot of this in your body and you secrete a lot of very low density lipoproteins, these lipoproteins are associated actually with cardiovascular diseases. So you could relate this case also into cardiovascular diseases. That's why if you are an alcoholic, you are at also high risk of non-communicable diseases like heart disease, hypertension, and all that. Diabetes can also set in. So these are some of the interlink or connections that you can get to understand this, including these reactive oxygen species, meaning there's an increased oxidation in your body and you're forming a lot of free radicals. These oxygen species are the free radicals that can denature your cells membrane, and your body system may not work as planned or as needed to the optimal, and you may not be healthy. Still under the consequences of ethanol, it can lead into acidosis. That is, acidosis is a case where you have a lot of acid in your blood. You have a low pH. Your blood has a very low pH. So an increases in alternative substrate for peripheral tissues. And once your body does not really utilize all this, you end up using other sources of energy. Ethanol metabolism increases alternative substrate for peripheral tissues, that is acetate from alcohol oxidation, and can cause an elevation of ketones in your body, leading to ketoacidosis, hyperlipidemia. This means here that you have a lot of ketones in your body, which reduces the pH of your body, your blood. So that simply means you have a low pH. Low pH means your blood is acidic. Because let me just simplify this like this. You look at the pH scale from 1 to 7, 7 to 14. And the low pH means you're just at the low figures. In layman's language, I can just tell you, if someone has a pH of 1, that's acidic. And it's a low pH. So if someone has a pH of 10, 14, that is high pH. That will be alkaline. So for this matter here is that you have acidosis, and ketone bodies are acidic in nature, and so the accumulation in your body can result into acidosis, which is called a ketoacidosis. And there is hyperlipidemia, meaning the high levels of the lipids in your body. So the elevated reduced NAT will negatively impact flux through the tricarboxylic acid cycle by reducing the activity of two key regulatory enzymes, and this can lead to an increased sampling of citrate from fatty acid synthesis. So for this case here, your body will end up synthesizing a lot of this citrate which is formed. You form a lot of citrate from fatty acids for fatty acid synthesis. So your body will end up synthesizing a lot of acids on the case of an alcoholic. So acetaldehyde that is formed in your body is a toxic compound. So these forms adapt with other proteins, reducing their ability to function. So protein functioning is affected in your body, and that could be also a reason possibly why many of these alcoholics with time, when the is beyond, they end up having challenges with this. They end up becoming edematous and all that, meaning protein regulation in their body is really very hard, and it's also a problem. The functions that protein molecules are supposed to perform in your body, things like the lipoproteins, they may not definitely definitely perform because of this acetaldehyde, which will adapt itself with other proteins, and then they reduce their ability to function well. So that was that with our ethanol metabolism. Hopefully you understood and will be able to receive questions maybe on the comment section and through us, the tutors, we will get them from you. And energy expenditure here is the next heading or topic for our discussion. And energy expenditure is the total amount of energy your body uses throughout the day. From morning to evening, how much that your energy, that's your body use. So it's a sense of understanding your individual calorie needs and maintaining a healthy weight. Why must you understand energy expenditure? So that this helps you to know how much calories do you need, and so that you can maintain your healthy weight. Or how is this related to a healthy weight? Is that when you have excess calories in your body, all these things are channeled into fats and they are stored. They synthesize fatty acids and then they are stored in the body. And those storage is in a form of fat, and it is be stored in your adipose tissue. And this can, in turn, with time, results into your increase in your body weight. So if you know your energy expenditure, how much you spend, you'll be able to definitely eat appropriately or take the enough source of energy foods that is just right enough for you to meet your RDA, the recommended daily allowance for you, so that you don't exceed your energy intake and end up having an excess that will be converted into fat, and you end up gaining a lot of weight that is unhealthy. So the amount of energy your body burns daily, and energy expenditure helps you to understand how much your body burns and everything. And this will vary how much your body burns or how much your body uses. This caloric value really depends on your physical activity and many other factors like maybe age and sex or gender. And so this energy expenditure is also very crucial for maintaining bodily functions and physical activity. How do you know how much energy you need for this functioning on everything? So if you're an athlete, you definitely have to go on a high calorie. If you're just someone who is sedentary, you just need to do what is enough for you. So it is measured in units like calories or kilojoules. Then kilocalories is also one of the units that we have included here. And this is just a measure of energy. It's a unit just for measuring energy. Just like you have voltage for electricity, or you just have kilocalories, say calories or kilojoules to measure how much energy your body uses or how much you consume. So that's exactly what it is. And this, if I talk in terms of calories, doesn't necessarily mean it's only from the carbohydrate sources. Get this clear, because even any other source of food from your body can give you that calorie. Your proteins can be used for calorie production. They produce energy depending on your physiological state. The fat can also do that, which of course gives us the highest amount of energy, 9 kilocalories per 100 grams, with carbohydrates having 4. So the components of energy expenditure are here, that we have a resting metabolic rate, MR. So, and the energy, this is the energy used for basic functions at rest, 60 to 75. And I can say this is basal metabolic rate, if I can just say in the simple terms. I think it is basal metabolic rate that some of us, or most of us, have actually heard about. And in high schools, we also used to have such terminology, basal metabolic rate, instead of the resting metabolic rate. So this is the energy that you need your body needs for basic functioning at rest. Assuming you're just sleeping, your body needs to continue functioning. If you're sleeping, your heart is still pumping, digestion still taking place, and you're still breathing, meaning your lungs are still functional, and growth is taking place in your body. You're just a living being, and everything is taking place. Just that a little function has been reduced. I think the digestive system, its functioning is being reduced and everything. So that is basically what you call the resting metabolic rate. When you're not doing anything, you're not sitting, you're not playing, not running, you're not doing anything, and you're just at rest. And maybe you're lied down on your bed relaxing, or maybe the best thing I can say is sleeping. And that's the energy you need to maintain yourself alive. The energy that your body system needs to continue functioning is what you call the resting metabolic rate, or you can simply say the basal metabolic rate. Then the thermic effect of food is energy used to digest and absorb food. And this process of digestion and absorption, all physiological functions or processes, biochemical processes really require energy. So how much energy does it use? So let's look at this, the thermic effect of food. This basically deals with food and digestion. How much energy do you need to digest your food? How much energy do you need to absorb your food? So that is 10% of total expenditure actually in most cases. Just like the way we have our basal metabolic rate, this is about 60 to 75% of your total energy expenditure is being used for the resting metabolic rate. So thermic energy, you have about 10% of your total expenditure. So 10% of that energy is what you use. It's about 10% of energy used for uh, digestion and absorption of food. And physical activity is also one of the component of energy expenditure. And this is energy used for movement and exercise and activities that you do. Keep yourself active when you're playing. Even right now, as I'm having this lecture, I'm utilizing some of the energy. As you walk, that is a physical thing, something that you do physically and need your own strength. That's basically how I can tell you what physical activity is. And the energy that you use in your movement, in your exercises, and all other activities that requires the strength, gymming, jogging, and everything. That is what you call the physical activity, and it takes about 15 to 30% of your total energy expenditure in the body. So, what factors really influence energy expenditure? One is that we have gender. Men typically have higher resting metabolic rate due to more muscle mass. A question can be said, why do men have a higher resting metabolic rate than women? That simply requires you to explain how the muscle mass consumes more energy than fats. Men are more masculine, while the female gender is actually more of fats. They have a lot of fats in their body compared to men. So a metabolism that takes place in muscles require far much energy than what takes place in a fatty tissue. So even if I'm resting, just because I have a lot of my muscle mass compared to a woman, that's clearly indicates that I'm consuming a lot of energy compared to a woman when we are both at rest. So that's basically resting metabolic rate. Just like what I said, the more your muscle mass, the more your resting metabolic rate. This you could just have a scenario that someone is more muscular, people who are going out for the gym, they are working out, they have so much muscles. So than a slimmy person, this slim person will use less of the resting metabolic rate compared to this person who is very active and does a lot of gymming, has a lot of muscles that build everything. So the metabolism that takes place in that quantity of muscles a man that does gymming or workout has is way more than that of a skinny or bony person, I can say in simple terms. And then the next factor is genetics, and some have naturally higher or lower metabolism. So some people that are born originally like that, your metabolic system could be very slow, or your metabolic system could be actually very high. So naturally, you're born like that. So we have diets. Protein may have slightly higher increase in TAF, that is the thermic effect of food. You're seeing right there, like I explained earlier, the thermic effect of food, meaning if someone consumes more of a protein food, a protein will require more energy to get digested compared to a carbohydrate food. So I could actually set you a question and ask, explain why someone who eats a lot of carbohydrate food than protein has a lesser resting metabolic rate or basal metabolic rate than a person who consumes a lot of protein food. What's up? The answer is right there because protein foods are having slightly an increased thermic effect of food. So that's actually what it is. So you could have an approach in that manner for that question. And next is our activity levels. The more active you have, the more calories you burn, the more you're resting metabolic energy. So an athlete is really having more of a higher energy expenditure compared to someone who is just sedentary, maybe an office secretary, a personal assistant to someone, could be a driver, on condition that this driver don't really have to take time in exercising and it's always stay in the car driving the bus or something of that kind. So physical activity is also one of the factors that influence energy expenditure. To have a recap of these factors, we have gender, body composition, genetics, diet, and physical activity as the factors that influence energy expenditure. What's the importance of energy expenditure like really? Why should I have that? One, why should I know about energy expenditure? One is that it is important for weight management. Why? If you know how much you spend, you will know how much to take in. So you will be able to balance between energy intake. Balancing energy intake with expenditure is a key for maintaining a healthy weight. So in this case, you'll be able to balance. If you know that your body, you definitely consume about let's say 1,800 kilocalories a day. You definitely have to consume about that 1,800, a maximum of 2,000, or maybe less than that slightly. Your range should be around there, so you'll be able to balance that energy because you need to take in what you consume. Just in case of excess, like I said earlier, it is converted or metabolized and forms fat, and which will result into increase in your body weight, which may be unhealthy unless recommended or indicated medically. And then the second is the overall health. We have adequate energy expenditure promotes heart health, bone density, and metabolic function. So that is it. So if you have a way how you spend your energy, there's a way how you have that overall health, you generally feel healthy. That's why people who are exercising and those who are doing some physical activities, at least their overall health keeps improving because the body system get to utilize this energy, you get to have a better metabolic functioning, and you have improved heart health. There are also some proven importance of exercise, which are scientifically proven. So those are some of the advantages, and it really improves your overall health. If you understand energy expenditure and you practice it well, you can have a better overall health. Then you have to understand energy levels. Your understanding your expenditure helps manage fatigues and optimize energy throughout the day. So if you know how energetic you can be, so there are instances where you feel like your energy has gone so low. If you can understand energy expenditure, you can really manage fatigue. You look at instances that you're an athlete, you have some a tournament maybe or a marathon to take possibly in a 1 week's time. There's what you call carbohydrate loading. You understand that you're really going to have this activity and it is going to utilize your energy. You start doing carbohydrate loading. I urge you to go and look for what carbohydrate loading is. So this will help you so that the time comes when you have really the energy and you can manage your fatigue and you can optimize your energy throughout the day as you're using throughout your activities and everything, because there is a marathon, a very energy demanding activity that you're going to go through. Just in the other way, I could say another example that just maybe you wake up early morning, You've got to know today is going to be a hard day for you. You're going to do a lot of work. You need to have enough. You need to have taken enough of energy food, because once you go hungry, you didn't take anything, you're going to get exhausted because your energy stores will be done. So you really have to feel the fatigue. You feel so tired. You feel no strength and everything of that kind. So it is important. The importance of this is that energy expenditure helps you to in understanding your energy levels. So that's it for energy expenditure. Then going further into disorders in carbohydrate metabolism, the first to give an overview is that carbohydrates are essential macronutrients, that provide energy for our bodies. It's actually a primary source of energy in your body. However, several disorders can disrupt the normal breakdown and utilization of carbohydrates. To some extent, you realize our body do not really break down the carbohydrates, or we end up not utilizing them the way they really ought to be, or the body is supposed to take them as proven scientifically. So this will lead into variety of health problems now, and this in this presentation we are going to explore some of the most common disorders of carbohydrate metabolism, and we'll look into their cause or their symptoms and possibly the treatment if available. Now, starting with the types of disorders, all these disorders are grouped into two. One is that you have inherited disorders. Some of these disorders you get them from your parents. Some of these they are actually genetical. That with time you have inherited them from your parents, or some mutations have taken place, or some changes in genes have taken place. So you cannot really metabolize carbohydrates, and that will pose a challenge. And these examples of this the inherited disorders include galactosemia. We are going to look into each one of them. Glycogen storage diseases, which we already looked at in one of our lecture about glycogenesis. And then heredity, lactose intolerance, pyruvate dehydrogenase deficiency. This is a deficiency of one of these enzyme of converting pyruvate or PEP to pyruvate. So those are some of these deficiencies, and they pose also a challenge with actually metabolism of carbohydrates. So let's look into the next type, which is an acquired disorder. And this, you develop it, you're not really born with it, and it is never genetical, it's not related to anything on your genes, but then there is a problem that you develop this later in life, and this could be due to maybe your lifestyles that have resulted into the development of this condition, or it can be caused by various factors such as diabetes mellitus, liver diseases, pancreatitis, and certain medications can also result into these carbohydrate metabolic disorders. So we really need to get into them. One example is, as we said earlier, is galactosemia, which is an inherited one. And this is where your body cannot metabolize the sugar called galactose here. So a sugar found in the milk and other dairy products. So I think galactose is found in milk, though its quantity is not really much more than lactose. The major sugar there is lactose. But galactose here is a very important sugar that is found in your milk. You can refer to our notes on carbohydrates and understand where galactose comes from and everything. So symptoms here can include vomiting, diarrhea, jaundice, and then the failure to thrive. Meaning failure to thrive here means you cannot really grow or perform the way you ought to perform. Jaundice is yellowish, bluish. It's bluish. Some bluish coloration of your membranes, can be your eyes, can be your palm, your skin, and all that. That is what we call jaundice. And cataracts. And treatment here involves strict dietary restrictions of galactose. So here you see the importance of a nutritionist, meaning if someone has galactosemia, you as a nutritionist, you should be able to develop that diet for that person who is galactosemic. For that case, you have to look into foods that are low in galactose and be able to recommend them for the client, and you develop your diet plan. Then second is the glycogen storage diseases, and these are a group of inherited disorders that are characterized by abnormal glycogen storage in various organs. Just like we discussed earlier during glycogenesis, one, these diseases, they come due to a problem or a challenge that has arisen during a breakdown or the storage of glycogen in your body. You may have a deficiency of an enzyme. You have the failure to form the branches and everything. And basically, these glycogen storages are due to deficiencies in enzymes or some errors in the enzymes. So this can affect you. So abnormal glycogen will be stored in various organs. Let's get into some of these. There are several types of glycogen storage diseases, each with different symptoms and severity. And by these symptoms here can include muscle weakness, you're feeling fatigue, hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar levels, the liver problems, you mean you can develop hepatomegaly. Your liver will start swelling and enlarging. And then the growth delays, you may not grow as expected. Then the treatment will depend on the specific type of the glycogen storage diseases. You could refer to our glycogen lecture, glycogenesis lecture, and you get to understand each of these glycogen storage diseases or disorders, and may involve dietary changes, medication, and enzyme replacement therapy. So all this here that we have dietary changes, you hope in dose counseling, of course. So you change the dietary thing, you look at the medication someone is taking, and then you work on that. And based on that, some medication can cause drug interaction. Much as you eat, you still have a problem with that. So we have, sorry about that. These medications here are very good in helping. Some of them can help. Some of them are made in form of supplements that can help or improve in one of those deficiencies in enzymes. And then we can have an enzyme replacement therapy. All those enzymes that are deficient and malfunctioning can be replaced in your body. And then you get a better and a functioning system, enzymatic system. Then hereditary fructose intolerance is one of the disorders as well, and it is an inherited disorder where the body cannot properly process fructose. And this fructose here is the sugar in fruits, honey, and some sweeteners. And the symptoms here can include nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, hypoglycemia, and liver damages. So when you have these issues, it damages your liver, you have hypoglycemia, low blood sugar levels, you have abdominal pain, you have a lot of challenges. So that was that for fructose, for the fructose. And treatment here involves strict dietary avoidance of fructose. Avoid fructose at all cost. So that was that. Let's get to the next subheading here, or the condition is that, or the disorder, sorry. We have pyruvate dehydrogenase deficiency, an inherited disorder affecting conversion of pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. That's one of the challenge. A crucial step in energy production, meaning your pyruvate cannot be converted into acetyl-CoA. So this will result into disorders. So this process may not proceed as the body is supposed to do that. Now the symptoms can include lactic acidosis, meaning lactate accumulates in your body and everything becomes acidic. Developmental delays, you either been mental, may have been physical milestones, and everything, they are delayed. And then we have seizures. Someone starts to faint and just faints and then gets better with time, and those are and comas and seizures, just like what you some people, you've seen so many people are fainting and becoming unconscious at a given point. So those are exactly what we call seizures. That state of being, those episodes of being, those episodes of being unconscious, what we call the seizures. Yeah, now finally we are almost there. They say disorders still that the treatment of all those diseases involves dietary modifications, medications, and sometimes liver transplantation or liver transplant in severe cases. If these conditions end up destroying a large portion of your liver and everything, much as the liver has the ability to regenerate its cells, surely after a long run it can still fail. So you need to really transplant the liver, get a new liver that is not affected with all those conditions. Yeah, thank you. For that, we still continue to diabetes mellitus. And diabetes mellitus here is one of the commonest diseases that almost everyone can have an idea about. And so this is a chronic metabolic disorder that is characterized by high blood sugar levels and due to impaired insulin production or action. So that's type 2 actually. So type 2, type 1. So diabetes is also another issue with is another disorder because once you have this diabetes, you cannot metabolize your carbohydrates because it is our biggest source of energy. So you cannot metabolize your carbohydrates that is in form of glucose in the case of a diabetic person. There are two types. There are two main types of diabetes, which is type 1 diabetes, and it's an autonomic disorder where your body destroys insulin producing cells, meaning when you're making, if you're trying to do, if you're trying an autonomic disorder where the body destroys insulin producing cell, which are the beta cells actually. So your body in this case has the ability to burn or to utilize or attach themselves. The receptor sites on the cells are actually available, but your body does not really produce what insulin because the insulin producing cells have been destroyed. And autoimmune disease is that they are, I can simply say, self-eating. Some of your immune system recognize some of your cells as foreign in your body. So it's more like your body sees your own cells as germs, bacteria, and everything. So it will want to destroy it. That is what we call an autoimmune disorder. So type 1 is not more common in adults. It's other what's called the juvenile onset diabetes, which sets mostly with childhood and it continues like that. That's type 1 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes here is the most common and it's almost everywhere. It develops within your life as time goes on. You end up developing them based on your lifestyle changes, your nutrition, or your feeding habits, dietary patterns, I can say. So this develop with time. Even if you still have the insulin, all the healthy cells, which is the beta cells, to produce for you this to produce this sorry to produce this hormone insulin. Your body cells don't have the ability to respond to insulin, so that will definitely cause you a problem that you have issues with metabolism, glucose, sorry, because we understand the role of glucose, the role of insulin in glucose metabolism, as discussed earlier in one of our lectures. Then the symptoms can include excessive thirst. There is a pathophysiology for how all these symptoms come about. That your body is throughout having a higher levels of, is having a higher level of glucose in your body, so your blood is just hypertonic. Hypertonic means that's a higher concentration of solids. So what happens is that your body That will result into an osmotic absorption of the fluid from your body into blood, meaning your cells would lack enough fluid. So that will trigger now the feeling for thirst. The frequent urination is that you have a lot in your blood, and if it has to be, then it's filtered out as urine. We have fatigue that you cannot utilize your energy. Blur vision is also one of that effect because you cannot supply enough energy to your site. Nervous system coordination is a problem, and also this glucose have a way how it affects the eyes or sight. Then the treatment of this involve lifestyle changing. If you choose to be a sedentary lifestyle, you need to start in a physical activity. Some medications you can avoid them, and you can use other medications such as metformin is also one of that medicine that is very important helping the metabolism. It actually activate gluconeogenesis. And sometimes insulin therapy, meaning you have injections of this therapy, this insulin you don't take in orally because insulin is a protein in nature, much as it's a hormone. Yeah, all hormones mostly they are protein in nature. So this insulin here can be destroyed. Yeah, so that is it for the disorders. Then we have the most common lactose intolerance, where you cannot metabolize or digest the sugar called lactose, which is found in milk. So this is characterized by symptoms such as abdominal discomfort, and this discomfort presents with bloating, gas, and abdominal pain. And how does this come about? It occurs in a way that once you take in your milk and it is not digested, it will end up going for fermentation, and that's where the gas come in from. Diarrhea is also one of the case because once that ferments in your gut, it increases the what? Uh, it's the acidity, the hypertonic the in the gut, everything becomes having a higher concentration, absorb more water from your gut. It also irritates your gas, that acidic nature, and increase more gastric motility. So you are absorbing a lot of water from your body because everything has become hypertonic due to that fermentation. The acid has already increased your gastric motility, and now you need to, and the process, the gastric motion increase, it you have to release out. That's why diarrhea is one of these presentations, though I've not included here. The abdominal pain, of course, you feel those pains, the gas, the bloating, and everything. Flatulence, you go to the toilet and all you do is you release out is gas. So this condition can be managed by restricting the intake of lactose containing foods like milk and milk products. You could give maybe yogurt under moderation. As long as fermented, this milk can be given in a fermented form, such that the lactose itself has been fermented or is been broken down to some extent, and may not pose a lot of effect much as a real milk or unfermented milk products could cost someone. So finally, to the end of our lecture today, we have, in conclusion, these disorders of carbohydrate metabolism encompasses a diverse groups of conditions with varying causes and presentation. There are a lot of carbohydrate disorders that are available. Even as you try to Google out, you'll find diverse of them being given out to you, more than what I've given here. But I've selected out some of the major things that can be talked about under carbohydrate disorders. So an early diagnosis of this condition and appropriate management is crucial to prevent complications and improve quality of life. Someone you need to diagnose someone earlier, especially lactose intolerance, diabetes. If you diagnose someone with diabetes type 2 earlier, and that person can be managed and someone can live a totally healthy life. But then if you leave someone who is diabetic to stay for long, with some time without management, with time that person will have vision, problem of vision, will have a lot of challenges with be having headaches, and the health will really deteriorate so much, and the quality of life will not be up to maximum. So an early diagnosis and appropriate management can prevent complications from developing if someone has one of these conditions. Right at the end of this lecture here, hopefully you'll be able to describe ethanol metabolism. You'll be able to know or explain the effect of increased reduced nut to oxidized nut ratio in the body. And then you explain the disorders of carbohydrate metabolism and their management. You'll be able to tell us what energy expenditure is. Yeah, thank you very much. And we have come finally to the end of our lecture today. And thank you for being there. See you.